Morning, everyone. Welcome. Here comes a cast of thousands. Come right in, cast of thousands. All right. Our first bill addresses public spaces in the city. Intro 1109B gives the Department of Transportation the authority to designate pedestrian plazas, to establish rules of conduct for all plazas, and to create rules regulating activities within individual plazas and their adjacent sidewalks. Sponsor is Councilmember Corey Johnson. The co-prime sponsor is Councilmember Dan Garodnick. Our city's pedestrian plazas are vital to neighborhoods and particularly to areas that lack other open space. And the city's plaza program has transformed underused streets across our city into vibrant open spaces for the public to enjoy. This bill will help make plazas across the city even better, including our particularly beloved Times Square. 39 million tourists from around the world visited Times Square last year, and obviously millions and millions of New Yorkers did as well. We want to make sure the visit is a great experience for all of them. So last year we convened the Times Square Task Force, co-chaired by Police Commissioner Bill Bratton and City Planning Chair Carl Weisbrod, and they were charged with developing a comprehensive plan to improve traffic flow, to regulate tip solicitation, and deal with a host of other issues. They came up with a thoughtful and constructive set of recommendations, and this legislation is a result of that effort as well. In order to make Times Square a better place for everyone, for people who work in the community, for everyday New Yorkers, for tourists, for entertainers, for people just passing through, there must be ground rules. And this bill will allow us to establish those rules, things that will and will not be tolerated in our plazas. I want to thank Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, Commissioner of the NYPD Bill Bratton, Chair of the City Planning Commission Carl Weisbrod, the Executive Director of Citywide Event Coordination and Management Michael Paul Carey, and now it's my pleasure to introduce our Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg. Didn't I see you a few hours ago?
Yes, in the wee hours in Staten Island. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks so much, and it's great to be here today. I, too, want to thank our partners on the council members Johnson and Garodnick, Chairman Rodriguez, Borough President Gail Brewer, and all of the stakeholders, both for Times Square and for all our plazas throughout the city. Our plaza program now includes 53 plazas with another 20 in planning and construction. And as the mayor said, Intro 1109B is going to make sure that we have some pretty basic common sense rules and regulations for those plazas. Under the bill, we'll be authorized to promulgate general rules for all plazas. They will cover conduct, litter, and quality of life issues, complementing the signage we already have in our plazas, as well as codifying the plaza program application process, making that fair and transparent for all who would like to create a plaza in their neighborhood. The bill will also allow us to do plaza-specific rules for Times Square, and we have very specific goals for Times Square. We want to maintain a lively, safe, and enjoyable public space for all those visitors and tourists and local New Yorkers while they're trying to communicate or enjoy entertainment or just take in the spectacles. We also want to ensure that performers and others can express themselves and pursue their livelihoods, all while keeping what is a very heavily congested part of our city moving. So we've been working with a lot of the stakeholders from Times Square and from the neighborhood plazas. We will be putting our proposed rules out very shortly after the mayor signs the bill, and continuing to work with stakeholders, the NYPD, the council, to put together what we hope will be a sensible set of rules to make our plazas safe and enjoyable. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Polly. And now, the lead sponsor of the bill, Councilmember Corey Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning. Today, I am incredibly proud to see our mayor sign into law a bill that will make Times Square safer and more enjoyable for the hundreds of thousands of pedestrians that spend time there every single day. Times Square, as you all know, is one of the great symbols of our city. It encapsulates New York's energy, its scale, its diversity, its quirkiness, and in a good way, I think, its craziness. And like other pedestrian plazas across the city, the Times Square pedestrian plazas have proven to be an enormous success, enhancing the human experience by providing a place for gathering, entertainment, enjoyment of our unique urban settings. I really think Times Square has become a victim of its own success in many ways. we put forward this legislation in partnership with the Times Square Alliance, the Broadway theater community, businesses in Times Square that wanted to make sure that Times Square remained quirky, but also remained safe. And so this bill, I think, is going to allow people to still continue to enjoy their activities, sell their wares, perform, be tickled if they're Elmo on the plaza, but to do it in a safe way so that folks are not harassed or harangued when they're heading through Times Square. As the mayor said, and as Commissioner Trottenberg said, I think this has really been a team effort. The borough president, Gail Brewer, Councilmember Gorodnick, and myself worked with the administration, with the Times Square Alliance, in coming up with what we think is a thoughtful and constitutional bill that is going to make Times Square a better place. I want to thank Tim Tompkins from the Times Square Alliance and Caitlin Lewis from the Times Square Alliance for their tremendous work in getting us to today. I want to thank Commissioner Trottenberg, Borough President Brewer, Councilmember Gorodnick, Commissioner Bratton, Commissioner Weisbrod, Michael Carey, and the many, many other people that helped make today happen. And I especially want to thank, on the council side, Rob Newman and Kelly Taylor. This is very complicated. It was not easy to actually come up with this proposal. It was tricky to do, but I think that once we implement this after the DOT rulemaking period, I think people are going to see Times Square is still enjoyable, still fun, but more orderly and more safe. And this all happened because the mayor convened the Times Square Task Force. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman. And now the Borough President of Manhattan, Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much, and I certainly want to thank all the people whom Councilmember Johnson thanked, but particularly Tim Tompkins and his staff, and then Jim Karras from our office. It was a long process, but a very productive one, and how Tim managed to bring in all the stakeholders, including elected officials, people who work in the area, live in the area, was something to behold. A good process, as I said, a good B-school case study. But I want to thank the mayor for signing 1109B and the council for moving so quickly, Councilmember Johnson and Gorodnick and others. Over the last year, we've been working collaboratively with the Times Square Alliance, the council members, and all the other stakeholders to bring order to the chaos, the good chaos, but chaos that threatened Times Square, to make sure we stay on the right side of the line between fun and frightening. Actually, the other day I saw something that was frightening, so it's good that this is moving forward. This bill is a critical product of the dialogue in response to the hard work of the Alliance and local officials. The mayor, to his credit, with great co-chairs, formed the task force which adopted recommendations. The Special Enforcement Unit is already up and running and doing a great job with NYPD, and this legislation is the next step in the plan. As you know, you heard from the commissioner, it would give DOT the authority to regulate commercial activities, solicitation, and entertainment in all of our city's plazas. It would not ban any of these activities, and the rulemaking process will provide ample opportunity for those various activities to continue to occur while protecting the primary purpose of the plazas, pedestrian access and movement. And I hope that we will all attend the DOT public hearing and weigh in on the specifics of the rules. And I want to thank DOT for being so supportive. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, I also want to say, in terms of the crucial focus on safety in Times Square, I think NYPD has done an extraordinary job and has really shown us what a focused and effective effort is. I want to thank Chief Morris, who's here with us. Thank you very much, Chief of Manhattan South. And if anyone understands the quirkiness, so we've been using the word quirkiness today, if anyone understands the quirkiness of Times Square, you are an expert, sir. But you've done a great job securing it, making it safe. Thank you very, very much. We would like to now call forward some public testimony. I'm going to call up 4 people, and everyone just line up and take your turn. Of course, Tim Tompkins of the Times Square Alliance, Michael Lambert of the New York Bid Association, Thomas Carpenter of Actors Equity, and Alexandra Sika of the Dumbo Bid.
So I'm Tim Tompkins, president of Times Square Alliance, and in my role at the Alliance, but also as a former co-chair of the New York City Bid Association, I just want to thank the mayor and everyone for bringing this bill to fruition, this thoughtful and balanced bill, which I think will allow not only Times Square to continue to be an economic engine for the entire city, producing 150,000 jobs, $110 billion in economic activity, but also for every neighborhood where their plaza is. I want to make a special call out to Corey Johnson as the sponsor of this bill, who moved it forward, his colleague Gail Brewer and Dan Garodnick. You guys were just absolutely incredible throughout this process. I also want to thank all the people on the mayor's team, Michael Bulgari, the folks from NYPD, Carl, and Commissioner Bratton, and especially Polly Trottenberg for her amazing patience on what is a very complex issue. And yes, and we can be persistent and annoying at times. So thank you for putting up with that, and also Emily and all of your team is just great for not just Times Square, but all these great plazas. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Lambert. I'm the Executive Director of the Bedside Gateway Business Improvement District in Brooklyn, also the co-chair of the New York City Bid Association. I want to thank Mayor de Blasio, Speaker Mark Viverito, Councilmembers Garodnick and Johnson, Councilmember Rodriguez, the City Council Transportation Committee, the DOT Commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, the NYPD Commissioner, Bratton, CECM Executive Director Michael Paul Carey, many of my bid colleagues, Ellen Baer, who's my co-chair from the Hudson Square bid, who couldn't be here with us today, and Tim Tompkins, obviously, Jen Brown from the Flatiron bid, Alexandria Sika, who you're going to hear from the Dumbo bid, and many countless others who are unfortunately, too many to mention right now. Just want to say, as key partners with the city, the programs, since this program's inception, bids have managed under the oversight of the Department of Small Business Services and the leadership of Commissioner Greg Bishop, who's here with us this morning as well. I just want to say on behalf of the 72 business improvement districts, we'd like to congratulate everyone on the establishment of this new law that establishes a framework that will allow these public colleges to operate, thrive, and grow in a manner that's most beneficial to all their users. So we'll congratulate you, everyone, and thank you again for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Thomas Carpenter. I'm with Actors Equity Association. We are a national labor organization representing over 50,000 actors and stage managers around the country, including more than 20,000 who live and work in New York City. Every day, our members navigate through the Times Square neighborhood, going from an audition to a dance class to a rehearsal to another audition, and then to their jobs at many of the Broadway and off-Broadway theaters that are in and around Times Square. And this law will definitely help our members get where they need to go. And it will also make certain that audiences don't have to worry about walking through Times Square to see our members when they perform. Our members work in Times Square, which is not only the crossroads of the world, it's also the crossroads of two important industries that fuel our local economy, entertainment and tourism. And on behalf of our 50,000 members, we'd like to thank you all, but especially Mayor de Blasio and Council Members Johnson and Garodnick for passing this common sense legislation that would manage activity in one of the most exciting and vibrant places in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Alexandria Sika. I'm the Executive Director of the Dumbo Improvement District. I manage a plaza underneath the Manhattan Bridge, the archway under the Manhattan Bridge, and I want to echo all of my thanks, all of my colleagues' thanks to Commissioner Trottenberg, Director Carey, all of the council really for working with us, as well as to Tim Tompkins, who while we have a couple hundred people coming through our plazas on any given day, I can only imagine the several 100,000, but that does come with its own set of issues, and we think this legislation is really a huge step forward in making our jobs easier as small organizations to manage these spaces and bringing that opportunity to all sorts of communities around the city. So we look forward to working in depth on the rulemaking process, and we really appreciate all the work to the state. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Want to give a chance for the chair of the City Council Transportation Committee, Adonis Rodriguez, to say a few words. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for your leadership on addressing a area where definitely, New York have been asking for so many years, which is how to regulate our plaza. I know that the media have been centering to Times Square Plaza, and that's what sells to the media, to a newspaper, or a TV, that we are against the Disney characters. However, this bill, this initiative, is more than the Times Square Plaza. This is about, for the first time, taking Plaza as a mechanism to make our city a more walkable one. A city where, besides having Disney as a great partner and the whole business community around Times Square, that have benefit for, in the last 30 years, with billions of dollars, with tax incentive. We believe that it is also our responsibility to continue supporting the business community in Times Square. We know how important it is also to regulate that area. We know how important it is for New Yorkers' quality of life, but also this created opportunity, because what I hope is that the whole theater community in Times Square, not only they will continue working closer with us, with the city, when it comes to the Times Square, but also expanding what they do in Times Square to the outer borough area, so that we can deal with the issue of inequality when it comes to cultural and theater in the 5 boroughs of New York City. So what I hope, again, and that's what we heard from the whole Times Square Alliance, the Disney community, is that they are open, that they, of course, they already been saying that they've been doing some partnership with the local school, but they want to be part of something that is more than Times Square. So for me, first of all, I'd like to thank also, beside the mayor, our DOT Commissioner, Polly, for her great leadership. And again, this will help us to improve quality of life in the Times Square area. I promise that the Disney custom there, too, that they will be doing the same or better than we're doing right now. So I believe also that in Times Square, those workers, they will have the opportunity to be supported by the business community in the area that will be designated for them to do the same or better than what they do right now. So thank you, and also thank you to my colleague, Councilmember Johnson, Manhattan Borough President Gebrewer, and Councilmember Ben Collins. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, let's sign the bill.
One for me at the end, the rest of I won't want them.
No further charge, do what you said. The proper form of addressing your road is yes, ma'am.
Still, excuse me, miss.
All right, here we go. Everyone ready? If you can get the first.
Thank you.
A moment where you get the first and shake hands. I'm like that, Corey, have you been to a bill? We have a little seminar we train people. Okay, I would like to do 1 to 10.
Okay.
Congratulations. You did that right. Or you're not sure how to do it. Talk to them, okay? Yeah, well done. Well done. Chief, where are you? He deserves a lot of attention. Where's the NBC censor? All right, JT.
Two more to the left, and then one for me.
You got okay, 2 more. I have 4 pens. There's 3 here, 1 for you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's right here. Bill's now law. Congratulations. Okay. All right. Let's give folks a second to clear out. We got some more coming. Liz is next.
If you want to switch spots. Get in the photo. Get in the frame.
Get in the photo, right? Sure.
I'm gonna get both days.
Would you want me to stand?
Okay.
This way you doesn't have to.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
We good? Okay. Next, we have intro 704A, which asks city contractors to report on the racial, ethnic, and gender diversity of their leadership. Sponsor is Councilmember Elizabeth Crowley. Our Department of Small Business Services will create and distribute a survey to all prospective city contractors that will collect demographic information on their executive boards. These voluntary surveys will add a new layer of transparency to the city's business transactions. And the information we learn will help us promote opportunities for increased diversity of leaders among the firms we do business with. We believe every New Yorker deserves an equal opportunity to lead, and this bill will help create that opportunity. I want to thank Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito for her support. Now my pleasure to introduce the Small Business Services Commissioner, Greg Bishop.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At SBS, we strive to provide opportunities to all New Yorkers and look to ensure that our procurement process reflects the great diversity of the city. The demographic makeup of contractors looking to do business with our city is very important to us. This legislation will give us a better understanding of current conditions so we can help develop strategies to ensure their leadership truly reflects the diversity of the city. The added layer of transparency will further assist our efforts to build a more inclusive workforce in New York City. I want to thank Councilmember Elizabeth Crowley for her leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, speaking of Councilmember Elizabeth Crowley, I'd like to hear from the lead sponsor of the bill, Councilmember Elizabeth Crowley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning. Today, as this bill becomes law, we take one more step in recognizing the importance of equal opportunity and diverse leadership in our city. Intro 740A will require the Department of Small Business Services to produce a survey for companies that do business with the city that will obtain the demographics of companies' directors, officers, and board members. Currently, New York City has no data on the gender and racial makeup of the people holding these positions. Not only is this law fair and smart, but it also promotes equal opportunity. Studies show that equal opportunity assists in achieving equal pay for equal work, and we have a responsibility to do all we can to close the gender and racial pay gap. Today, women hold less than 5% of CEO positions and only 16% of board seats at Fortune 500 companies. This lack in top-level positions is pervasive in boardrooms, big and small, across the country. But this is more than an injustice to women. It is actually hurting companies' bottom line. Study after study show that when people of different genders and races hold leadership positions, it improves the company's financial performance, economic growth, productivity, and profitability. It is clear that when companies perform most efficiently when they bring equal opportunity, allowing everyone a seat at the table. In 2015, the city procured $13.8 billion worth of goods and services through more than 60,000 transactions. Intro 40A will provide the city with the data it needs to ensure that city contracted businesses are promoting the diversity that makes this city so great. I want to thank our mayor, Bill de Blasio, for making this bill a law. I'd like to thank Commissioner Greg Bishop for his support. I'd like to also thank Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito and my colleague, Darlene Mealy, who was co-chair of the Women's Caucus and co-sponsored this legislation. I'd also like to recognize that we're joined by former Controller Liz Holtzman, a fierce advocate for women, and I'm proud to have worked with her on this bill and on many women's issues. I'd like to also thank the advocates who are here today. And from the advocacy groups, we're joined by Catalyst, Power Her, 2020 Women on Boards, 30% Coalition, Direct Women, and Diverse Visions Group. I look forward to this law taking effect so that we can continue to create a city where all New Yorkers can succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have some public testimony, and we're thrilled to have Liz Holtzman with us. So we're going to give you the first chance, and then followed by an all come up and speak in turn. Beverly Neufeld, Deborah Gillis, and Francesca Barak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think I know how to do this.
You're good at it.
Good morning, everyone, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I want to congratulate and praise Councilmember Elizabeth Crowley for her amazing leadership on this legislation and on so many issues affecting the rights and status of women in this city. She's done an amazing job, and I'm very proud to have been of some small assistance to her, but she's been a pioneer in this city and has done an enormous amount for women. The city has tremendous purchasing power, and it needs to use it to effectuate justice for its varied population, men and women, blacks, whites, Hispanics, people of all races and ethnic origins and religions and so forth, to make sure that the people who do business with the city take into account the diversity of the city's population and not discriminate in their hiring and in their board composition. This legislation will take a major step forward in bringing greater justice, greater economic benefits to the city of New York. And I, again, want to compliment everyone who's had a role in this, including Councilmember Mealy and the Speaker, Melissa Mark Viverito.
Thank you very much, Liz. Oh, wait a minute. I said everyone come up and stand in line. This is my instruction didn't work here. Everyone form a line. All right. Whoever would like to go first, feel free.
Okay. Hi, I'm Beverly Cooper Neufeld, and I'm the founder and president of Power Her New York. We work on economic equality, accelerating that for New York women. First of all, thank you, Mayor, for your leadership on women's equality and pay equity. We're very excited to work with you on that. Council Member Crowley and her team have been just amazing in moving this forward. But I do want to remark on the councilwoman's tenacity. Last Equal Pay Day, she announced the introduction of this bill. And this Equal Pay Day, just last week on the steps of City Hall, she announced that it had been passed and would be signed into law. And that is a minor miracle, I think, in this kind of work. We wish all of our legislative priorities would move that swiftly, but laws that nudge society towards transparency and inclusion do not seem to move as quickly. Matter of fact, it's a very slow process. Power knows we've been working 10 years on equal pay and equal opportunity, and just now seeing that we are passing these bills. One of our strategies has been the contractor reporting strategy, and I'm heartened to know that the city is looking at that for equal pay. So it's another way of leveraging the amazing purse and the taxpayer dollars that New York City has to help companies change, to help them open their eyes to some of their practices and therefore open doors to minorities and women to take their rightful seat at every table. Thank you so much for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Gillis. I'm president and CEO of Catalyst, and I'm delighted to be here. I want to extend congratulations, Mayor de Blasio, to you, to Speaker Mark Viverito, to Small Business Commissioner Greg Bishop for your support for this work. And in particular, I want to congratulate Councilmember Crowley for her leadership and the support that she received in this from Councilmember Mealy. Catalyst research has consistently found that when there are more women in leadership, on boards and in leadership teams, that the financial performance of companies is stronger. It's also found that when companies have more women in leadership, they also invest in corporate social responsibility to a greater degree. So what's good for women is good for business and communities and societies. And so today, in taking this important step, City Council is not only supporting women, but you're supporting the success of businesses and the city as a whole. And so we congratulate you on what is a timely step. Transparency and disclosure are two important steps that will help boost women's representation in leadership, and in doing so, help to build a more just, equitable, and stronger city. So thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Francesca Burek, and I'm president of Enterprising and Professional Women New York City. We are the local chapter of Business and Professional Women International. We're in 110 countries. And I just want to congratulate Speaker Crowley and the mayor. Thank you so much, both of you. It was an amazing journey. I was on the steps of City Hall with you last year at Equal Pay and testified at your hearing. And it is so important for all of us to look at the talents and the hidden gifts of each and every employee and move those talents and gifts forward so that companies are more profitable. When companies are more profitable, our economic engine of this city is greater and faster. And so thank you so much, because as was mentioned, transparency is very important, and it's the first step for major change. And I think this bill, now becoming law, is the first step of major changes here in the city and a model for other governments around the United States and around the world. And we will be sending out a press release of our own to all of the international affiliates, congratulating the City of New York on this wonderful, wonderful law. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We missed one person. My apologies. Janet Handel, please step forward.
Yes, I'm Janet Handel from 2020 Women on Boards. This organization is a national campaign to get the number of women on corporate boards to 20% by the year 2020, public boards. So we want to thank very much the mayor for your leadership, and especially Councilmember Crowley for taking us through the process of getting a bill signed into law. We very much appreciate it, and as well as Councilmember Mealy and Gorodnick, and of course our partners in this, PowerHer, Catalyst, and Executive Women. It's a forward-thinking piece of legislation that we believe will encourage companies to examine the diversity of their ranks. Transparency is the first step in all of this, because it begins the conversation and it makes public what's going on. And that's a really, really important thing. The research is very clear that diverse organizations not only perform better financially, they have better decision making, they treat their customers better, they have a clearer understanding of what their role is in the community. So we congratulate all of you, and we're glad to be in New York, which is leading the way once again. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. I want to just take a moment to congratulate all of you, congratulate Liz Crowley, and share with everyone, Liz Holtzman, I think you'll appreciate this, that when I was elected, I believed I had a clear mandate to foster representation and diversity. I also had a very distinct mandate from Charlene McRae, which was that she was quite adamant and specific that more than 50% of the leadership positions in the administration had to be women. We are well over 50% in terms of senior leadership in this administration. And we also learned something very important from the beginning. Our Director of Appointments, which is the leading personnel position for all senior leadership, from the very beginning has been a woman. And lo and behold, if the person in charge of personnel is a woman, you can get to over 50% leadership positions held by women. So we're very proud of that in New York City. Congratulations to all. Let's sign this bill. You got testimony on this? Okay. Okay. Here we go. Next one. Okay, next we have 5 bills. Whole lot of legislation today. And next we have 5 bills that advance fairness, efficiency, and privacy in our for-hire vehicle sector. Intro 658A requires TLC licensed vehicles to protect their passenger information. The sponsor is Councilmember Dan Garodnick. No one, of course, wants their personal information leaked or disseminated. This bill will give riders peace of mind that their names, addresses, credit card information, and GPS data from their ride will be kept private. Now, Intro 1080A requires black car and luxury limousine services to provide fair estimates to passengers upon request. The sponsor is Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito. Now, riders in yellow and green cabs know that when they take a ride, they're paying a set metered fare. But riders in other for-hire vehicles don't have that certainty. So beginning today, passengers can request and will receive an estimate for any trip. And they will not be charged a fare of more than 20% higher than the estimate they're given. We don't want anyone to experience sticker shock in their for-hire ride. Intro 1092A eliminates the requirement that all black cars be retired after 7 years of operation. The bill instead allows them to remain in service as long as they pass all required inspections. Sponsor is Councilmember Rory Lansman. Taxi and Limousine Commission has already eliminated this requirement for most black cars, and this bill will take care of the remaining 25%. Intro 1095A creates a universal license for taxi cab and for-hire vehicle drivers. The sponsor is Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez. And Intro 1096A increases the penalties for illegal street hails. Sponsor on this one again, Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez. When unauthorized vehicles pick up street hails, passengers lose out on the safety and consumer protections that come with a ride in a TLC licensed car. And those illegal hails deprive TLC licensed drivers of income. These bills will make it even clearer who is licensed and will raise the price for breaking the rules. Together, they'll create a fairer and safer experience for both drivers and their passengers. I want to thank Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, TLC Commissioner Meera Joshi, and Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez as chair of the Committee on Transportation. And now, JP, hold on, we have a technical difficulty. Ydanis, okay. Once again, back to the microphone. Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez.
Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to stand with you, Mayor de Blasio, and also I would like to thank my colleague who is here, especially Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito, and all the colleagues for being supporting and the staff who work so hard. And today, you know, through this legislation, we aim to bring more parity to the taxi and for-hire industry, leveling the playing field for our hardworking drivers while ensuring the established rules are enforced. We will also provide stronger assurances to riders that their sensitive personal information is secure and that they can rely upon a strict price transparency to avoid a sticker shock. These legislations are good for drivers, for the industry, but most of all, for the riding public, and I'm proud to sponsor, co-lead, or support them today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are now ready to sign this legislation. Gather around. One each.
Yep. Oh.
What's the immediate question? One each. What is that? You want to amend your statement? No. Okay. Come on. Like a decade of knowing each other. What am I calling? You want to take the draw? Yep. For the speaker, and to you. Yep. So much easier just to fill out the whole thing, not letter by letter. I'll do this. Congratulations, you got another one, you double up today. Okay, all these bills are now law. Congratulations. Okay. Now, last but not least, we have 4 bills. This one we care about a lot because it has to do with revenue. We have 4 bills that will improve our ability to collect debt owed to the city. The Department of Finance reports there is $1.6 billion owed to the city as a result of unpaid building, sanitation, and other violations. That money can help the city pay for our parks, our schools, our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters, and so much more. This package of legislation will help us to collect unpaid fines. Intro 806B establishes a temporary amnesty program for people who owe money to the city. The sponsor is Councilmember Jalissa Ferreras-Copeland. This, with her cheering section. This program will give individuals and businesses 90 days to come forward and pay their fines without paying penalties for failure to appear at a hearing. They may owe a fine for failing to clean a sidewalk or for performing construction without a permit. For example, while we are reaching out aggressively so New Yorkers know we will be reaching out aggressively so New Yorkers know that they can participate in this program. Now, Intro 807A requires city agencies issuing notices of violation to generic, quote-unquote, owners of businesses, premises, or organizations to make reasonable efforts to actually learn the owner's name. The sponsor, again, is Councilmember Jalissa Ferreras-Copeland. It's just common sense that if you issue a notice of violation to a generic owner without naming who it is, chances are it will go unaddressed or unpaid. So this bill requires the agency issuing a generic notice of violation to make a concerted effort to learn the name of the recipient. This means we'll know who's accountable and who's responsible for taking care of the bill. Intro 812A requires city agencies to issue notices of violations involving a building or a lot to include the borough, block, lot number, the building ID number, or device ID number as applicable. The sponsor is Councilmember Ben Kalos. These specifications will also make it easier to collect unpaid penalties. Intro 810A pertains to city agencies that issue notices of violations as well as licenses, permits, and registrations. It permits these agencies to create rules that allow them to consider unpaid debt when determining whether to deny an application for or suspend or terminate or revoke licenses or permits or registrations. Agencies that can already exercise this authority will be exempted from this legislation. The sponsor is Councilmember Ben Kalos. This bill means that if you don't pay your fines, it may impact your application for a license or registration, or whether you get to keep that license or registration. Together, these 4 bills will give us important tools to collect money owed to the city, and meaning to the people of New York City. I want to thank Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, Department of Finance Commissioner Jacques Giha. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the Oath Commissioner Fidel Del Valle.
Thank you. When one of the city's enforcement agencies, one of the 16 to 24 enforcement agencies, finds that someone allegedly violated a safety law or regulation or a public health law or regulation or a quality of life regulation, they issue a summons or notice of violation that's returnable to one of Oath's subsidiary tribunals, in this case, the Environmental Control Board. And when they go to this tribunal, that tribunal will then, at a hearing officer, will determine whether or not that individual or entity was guilty or not guilty, and if they were found liable, they typically would impose a fine or penalty. It becomes very, very disheartening and frustrating that although most people who are responsible pay their fines and penalties and correct the violations, a lot of people scoff at the law and scoff at the process. When we came into office, we found to the extent of $1.5 billion worth of these things have occurred over the last 30 years. It's all accumulated over that time. That was unacceptable to this administration, and at the direction of Mayor de Blasio, Finance Commissioner, my colleague, Jaha, and his deputy, Mr. Commissioner Shearer, who's here with us today, started to work on correcting that problem. And particularly, I'd like to be grateful to the City Council, who found this also obnoxious and inappropriate, particularly Councilman Callos and Council Member Ferraris Copeland, for giving us the tools, giving the city the tools to start, at this point, a benchmark for correcting these issues. This piece of legislation right now, the most immediate part, will allow people to come forward and get their act together and do the right thing. And if you don't, you will suffer the consequences. It also creates tools to make sure that some of the problems that the Department of Finance has had in finding who owes the city money will be addressed by identifying those scofflaws. You don't get a chance to publicly thank your boss very often, but I'm thanking the mayor right now for not only on behalf of the people of the city of New York for this, but for those underloved members of the bureaucracy who work so hard to try to make the city safer and healthier for our citizens, and then adjudicate those who don't, and then feel frustrated when they just become scofflaws, walk away, and ignore their obligations. And this brings real meaning to the law and justice in the city of New York at the administrative level. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. They're not unloved. We love them.
I do.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Now I want to introduce sponsor of 2 of these bills and the chair of the Committee on Finance, Councilmember Julissa Ferraris Copeland.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to thank Commissioner Gia and his staff in the Department of Finance for cooperating with the Council to improve upon its collection efforts, and for not only enforcing its judgment collection process, but also giving relief to property owners, many of which are still facing difficult financial circumstances. Last year, in an effort to bring about more transparency in the ECB debt collection process, the Council passed Local Law 11 that required an annual report from the Department of Finance detailing the amount of outstanding ECB judgments. According to that report, published in November of 2015, the city is owed $1.5 billion, as was mentioned by the mayor. What we found was that $386 million is interest, $709 million are owed in penalties, and approximately 75% of the total debt owed is more than 2.5 years old. As the council and the mayor go through the city council's budget process, we know that there are far too many programs and agencies that would use an extra $1 billion really well.
Well said.
This temporary amnesty program is, again, temporary, is a win-win for our city, for New Yorkers. With ECB judgments, it will encourage New Yorkers to resolve their outstanding ECB debt faster, all while helping them save money and avoid tougher enforcement. We want as many New Yorkers as possible to take advantage of this 90-day amnesty period. So it will be paired with an outreach plan targeting those areas with a high concentration of New Yorkers with ECB judgments. This is a one-time opportunity, and the DOF will not offer such a deep discount once it is over. So please, I encourage anyone with ECB debt to participate in this program. I'd like to thank the Finance Division staff, Tanisha Edward and Rebecca Chasen, for working on this bill for over a year to ensure that it gave the city a strong tool for recuperating this debt while protecting the interests of property owners and New Yorkers. I'd also like to thank my colleague, Councilmember Kalos, for supporting this work from the very beginning and for investing his time and brainpower to help improve DOF's process. And finally, thank you to Deputy Commissioner Jeff Cheer and Assistant Commissioner Samara Karras, who we spend a lot of time discussing this, hours, I would say, working collaboratively with us to craft this legislation and for developing an excellent targeted media campaign that will surely maximize the participation rate at this amnesty program. Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to say that a year ago today, you performed my wedding. So thank you very much. We're very excited to celebrate our anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Finally, sponsor of two of the pieces of legislation and chair of the Committee on Governmental Operations, Councilmember Ben Kalis.
I got to use the step.
You don't even need the step. I forgot.
It's for us vertically challenged.
That's right. We're not judging.
Thank you. Every day, council members received calls, emails, and even tweets about quality of life problems like trash on sidewalks, excessive noise before or after hours, health code violations, and dangerous construction. Until now, a 311 complaint might result in a violation, but those violations were often difficult to collect, leaving the city owed, as has been said, $1.6 billion in outstanding ECB debt. That is, as has been mentioned, $1.6 billion that could be spent on school lunch for our students, facilities for our seniors, and affordable housing for all.
Amen.
We've been working on this quality of life issue since May of 2014 when Councilmember Ferraris Copeland and I raised the issue at a joint budget hearing of our committees. Following our hearing, Commissioner Jiha's Department of Finance issued a report in June, which provided the basis for this legislation. The Council passed Local Law 11 of 2015, sponsored by Councilmember Ferraris Copeland and I, which required reporting on quality of life violations. The first report, issued in November of 2015, supported the need for further reforms. That report, coupled with monthly reporting on the number and reason for dismissals by Commissioner Del Valle's Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, OATH, uncovered two main problems. One, violations were missing the information necessary to find out who is responsible, and two, bad actors with outstanding violations could still do business without correcting mistakes or changing their behavior. Introduction 807A and 812A will help us identify who is responsible. Introduction 807A, sponsored by Councilmember Ferraris Copeland and I, requires the city to make reasonable efforts to find out the person responsible instead of generically writing violations to owner of. Introduction 812A requires agencies to include a unique identifier, like the borough block and lot and building identification number on the summons. Introduction 810A requires agencies to consider all outstanding or repeated quality of life violations when renewing or granting licenses or registrations, with public reporting on applications reviewed and denied. Moving forward, when New Yorkers complain and a violation is issued, instead of ignoring it or paying it as a cost of doing business, bad actors and repeat offenders will have to improve their behavior. Signing these bills will not only help the city collect $1.6 billion, but will more importantly change the behaviors that jeopardize public safety and will improve quality of life. These bills happened because of the collaboration of the legislative and finance divisions of the council, the Department of Finance, and roundtable meetings with nearly a dozen agencies that issue ECB violations. All parties put in a lot of work to come up with solutions to a long-standing problem, and I think we're making positive changes to quality of life enforcement across the city. I'd like to thank Mayor de Blasio, Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, Councilmember Ferraris Copeland for their partnership in getting these bills passed, particularly Ferraris Copeland for her patience. This has been a long process. Commissioner Jacques Jiha, Deputy Commissioner Jeff Shear, and Samara Karasik, Assistant Commissioner from the Department of Finance for their transparency, reporting, and guidance. Commissioner and Chief Administrative Law Judge Fidel Del Valle and Assistant Commissioner John Castelli from Oath for their unbiased and frank assessment of the hearing process. Charles Adenoff for herding together 11 agencies to come up with real solutions. From the Council's Legislative Division, Matt Gowal, Rachel Cordero, Samita Deshmukh, and Wes Jones. From the Council's Finance Division, Tanisha Edwards and Rebecca Chasin, and my Legislative Director, Paul Westrick. That's the team that made this happen, and hopefully we can all come up for the bill signing.
There you go. You must come up for the bill signing. Okay, we're just going to say a few words in Spanish about all of the bills that we have done today, and then we're going to sign these last bills. Las 11 leyes que estoy firmando hoy nos ayudan a crear normas de conducta para nuestras plazas peatonales, tener una industria de autos de alquiler más justa para choferes y pasajeros, mejorar nuestra capacidad para cobrar deudas y crear un programa de amnistía para deudores elegibles y dar a nuestros contratistas la capacidad de revelar información demográfica sobre sus líderes. Y seguimos trabajando cada día por una ciudad de Nueva York más segura, más justa y con más estabilidad financiera. Muchas gracias. All right. No, no, it's stability. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. She knows how to say. Estabilidad.
Right. We're going to do 3 each.
3 each. Okay.
That's it, right? Gentlemen, get down, please, gentlemen, to the right. Thank you.
Gracias.
De nada. Bien hecho.
Bien hecho.
Gentlemen, get down, please.
In exchange for your spread, you get a free pen. Okay.
It works.
When I twist it, the stress goes away.
Yeah.
That's right. It's very good. Like one of those James Bond pens, but it's stress relief.